So, welcome everyone, and thank you for joining this session. This session will be about secure and scale the access to your multi-cloud resources using HashiCorp Boundary. Stéphane, during the presentation, you can ask questions using that code. So it's slido.com with that code number. So I will share the link here on the chat. So it's slido.com. And the number is 616106 440. So if you have any question, feel free to ask using that applications, like these people in person in the room here and people remotely can ask the question and have the same user experience with the Q&A session at the end of the session. Then, with my mouse. Stéphane Este-Gracias. You can contact me with Este-Gracias handle and social network. I'm open source advocate since a long time now, and an HashiCorp ambassador since this year. And you can find our previous sessions on our YouTube channel, HashiCorp User Group Luxembourg. And you can tweet about these events with Luxembourg Hug handle if you want. So today we will see how to scale and secure your access to your resource with Boundary. The agenda of today is to see, we'll see first what is the traditional access workflow and how Boundary is different on that way. Then we'll see the Boundary access workflow regarding the multi-cloud access. And then if I'm lucky enough, the demo afterwards to demonstrate what I said on the slide. So first, what are the traditional access workflow? The user would like to access resources remotely and have to connect on the host or on an application or database, whatever you want to access. The user needs first to know how to access. Basically, this access is usually protected via a VPN or SSH bastion host or jump box. Something you need to connect on before connecting to the hosts or applications. So for this, you need to request and the administrator needs to issue VPN credentials or SSH keys for you to connect on the VPN or SSH bastion host. Then, as soon as you are connected on the VPN or SSH bastion host, you need to know the IP address of the host or the applications to connect on, and they are as well for the administration on the network side, firewall management with IP-based controls on them. So then, as soon as you get the connectivity to the applications or the host, you need to get some credential to connect on that host or applications. So then at the end of the day, if you want to connect on these applications, you see how difficult it is to manage the connections, and to manage this at scale, it will be difficult to get on that process. It's difficult to onboard new people on the process, as well to offboard people, to revoke credentials, revoke access, etc. It's become difficult. Then the operator that connect on the SSH bastion host or VPN have access to all the network, not only the application that is targeted there. Even if you have firewall is IP-based, is not user-based controlled. Then managing IP becomes challenging when you scale with dynamic resources, especially on the multi-cloud environment. And then static hosts or app applications are traditionally shared with the users to connect on that application. So you see here all the issues you are facing off when you are doing traditional access workflow, when you want to connect on the resources. How Boundary is different. So if here I represent the same workflow with shorter paths, you see that the user needs to get access through the VPN to the resources and have credentials to access the VPN, then the target systems. And here you see behind the VPN, the user has access as well to other systems that was not targeted by the first request. Boundary is different on the way that, sorry, the pop-up that appear here, so sorry. So traditional user would connect in the private network using VPN, etc. And however, this approach is becoming increasingly challenging as infrastructure grows and becomes more dynamic and needs a new zero trust security models on that perspective. Sorry, issue is my window. Speaker notes doesn't show well. Sorry. However, then with Boundary, what is the solution? Boundary provides different way of solving this problem by using single sign-on and role-based access control to allow user to access logical services rather than specific IP address. This approach minimizes the need of managing low-level IP-based controls, and dynamic secrets are used to manage credentials and minimize exposure. And Boundary basically consists in two parts. The controller that manage the ACSU connections and managing the workers, the boundary workers, and boundary workers are proxying the connectivity between the users and the target systems. And as well, on the client side, you can interact with boundary controller with CLI or boundary desktop. We'll see afterwards in the demo how does it goes. So if we step into Boundary, what are the Boundary access workflow? So Boundary have four-stage workflow. First, authenticate, then authorize, connect, and access. How does it work? First, authenticate. So the user logs in with a trusted identity with any identity platform such as Azure Active Directory, Okta, Ping, or any other trusted identity platforms supporting OpenID Connect. Then, after the authentications, Boundary authorize user based on their roles and logical services. In Boundary, you have roles defined to give some grants or permissions to access targets. And then regarding your roles given by your user account connected to your single sign-on provider, you will get access and list of actions you are allowed to perform against systems. Then you have connect, and connect, the user selects their applications or hosts from a dynamic host catalogs. So these catalogs could come from public cloud, Consul, Terraform, Kubernetes, or whatsoever API-related application that can populate the catalog on Boundary. So here, the dynamicity is managed by the infrastructure automation you could have around your public cloud or your Kubernetes platform to populate the catalog from Boundary. Then the last step, the access. So Boundary streamline the connection to hosts by automating the discovery and access configuration for every host in the catalog. And by using Vault in parallel of Boundary, you can as well have dynamic secret and just-in-time credentials with short-lived, most of the time with short-time live. That means that the credential that will be used by the operator, the user that need to target the systems, will be revoked as soon as the TTL is reached. So it could be minutes or hours. It depends what type of operation you have to manage on the target system. Regarding the multi-cloud access, for the multi-cloud access, you can manage to use Boundary on your own. You can install Boundary on your data center or on public cloud, install it by your own, or you can use HashiCorp Cloud Platforms that has Boundary as a service. You can just create an account and connect on Boundary here to get access to whatever platform you want to target. Here, to simplify the demo, I didn't install a Boundary controller on my own. I'm using the HCP platform, but here the demo will be the same except for the injection of credentials. So with the open source version of Boundary, you can get dynamic secret or dynamic credentials, but they are not injected automatically in the sessions for you. So you have to copy paste the credentials that will be given to you in the desktop UI or in the CLI. Here, I will demonstrate the secret injection. So the connectivity will be automatically managed by Boundary, and then the authentication on the target system will be managed by the Vault credential automatically. So then what to do is to install some Boundary workers, so the self-managed workers in your clouds. It could be Azure, AWS, or GCP, or it could be on-prem on VMware, for instance. So you can install as many Boundary workers as you need inside your cloud platforms. And then in HashiCorp cloud platforms, you have to make a relations between the Boundary in red, in the Boundary worker in red in the HashiCorp cloud platform, and the connectivity from the Boundary workers. So basically, the Boundary workers will connect to the Boundary in the close to the controller in the HCP platform. And when the user will connect to one of the target systems on any cloud, Boundary controller will manage the workflow for you to connect to the right workers directly. So here in the HCP platform, already managed to create this connectivity from Boundary workers to HCP platforms. You need to allow access from egress your platform, cloud platform to HCP platform, and that's it. You don't need to give access from HCP platform to your cloud platform. It's the opposite. It's the egress connectivity. So let's move on the demo now. I'll stop to share my screen and start to share my screen completely. So here is Boundary. I already connect to my Boundary platform, and I create one organization. Here is HashiCorp User Group Luxembourg. And in that organizations, as I said on the slide, the workers are running here and connected on the cloud platforms. So then, if I dig into the organizations, I have projects. So I created one project per cloud. So here I have a project for the private cloud, so it's on-premise infrastructure on my data centers, a demo for AWS, for GCP, and for Azure. And then I have some users created here at that level, but as well in org level, I have as well users, more users here that are connected. So you have scopes in Boundary. They have a global scope. So here, those users have access to all the organizations. And then here, users defined here only have access to that organization. It depends how you like to manage your users. Then on each project, here if I dig into demo projects, we have targets. So here for the demo purpose, I only managed to have one target to demonstrate how Boundary is working, but you can have as many targets as you want. and then some credentials to manage with the sessions. So here, if you see the target is an OpenSSH server, and manage to put the credentials of it directly here inside Boundary. Here is some credential store inside Boundary. So here, to simplify the demo, I don't use Vault, but you can as well connect to Vault to request that credentials. So here, the credentials are statically managed here by giving the private key of the sessions. But to demonstrate how Boundary is working, it's easier to focus only on Boundary. Probably if you want in the next sessions, I can manage to do wider demonstrations. But here, the goal it was only to demonstrate the multi-access on multi-resources and the ability of Boundary to manage this easily. So then here is the admin console to manage the connectivity. I can show you here the Boundary desktop. The Boundary desktop, when I log into Boundary desktop, I see how all the target I can connect on. So here I can see all the target I define on every project. So here are all OpenSSH targets in every project I manage. So in demo Azure, demo AWS, demo GCP, and demo private. And if I would like to connect on that target, I just have to click connect. And here, locally on my computer, Boundary desktop will create a proxy on localhost to manage the session for me. So I just have to copy paste the URL and to type SSH localhost. To connect directly to my on-prem server. So here I enter anything that's is required. So the connectivity is managed by Boundary desktop, is proxying the session for me. And as a user, I only have to connect with the local port that is open for me. And because I managed to have a credential store, the SSH key that is required to do the automatic connectivity without password is managed directly by Boundary in the cloud. So Boundary on the HCP platform to manage the key exchange. So if I do the same, so I can close the session and go back to Boundary desktop, I can close and connect on Azure, for instance, or yes, on Azure, let's say. So I do the same. And straight away, I get access to Azure. So here, I got the connectivity from everywhere I want with a Boundary access and with Boundary desktop, but you can do the same with Boundary command line. So here I can manage to use Boundary connect SSH with the target scope name, so with the project, so here demo private, and the target name, OpenSSH. If you have a look on the platform, here is the project demo private, and the target is OpenSSH secret. So just by typing this, so beforehand I connected with Boundary authenticate and enter login password to manage the connectivity, as I did as well for Boundary desktop. But as soon as I'm connected, I can create a connectivity for on-prem, as I did with the graphical interface, or here, AWS, and for every platform. So at the end, I got access to the resources I expose on boundary target here for every project. So, and with boundary, you can as well restrict access to users by managing roles and managing the roles, managing how you manage the people here with grants, etc. So here, my goal was only to show you how to manage boundary. To go further, I suggest you to go to the documentation of boundary, and if we have any question about how to use it, we can go through them as well during the Q&A session. So let me go back on the slides. Up. So it was a demo for the presentation, and then so no question because here it was only the test for a Q&A session. Do someone has a question here about boundary? Otherwise, I can put here the code. And I guess on your side, do you have any questions? You can open your mic if you want because you are the only one on remote. No question? Did you know boundary before the presentation or not? On the room, yes. Heard about boundary, but don't see the features. Okay. And I guess do you have knowledge about boundary beforehand? No. Okay, so if you have no question, so probably because we have few attendees here in person and in remote, or everyone knows very well boundary. So I guess you learned something. Otherwise, it will be a waste of time. Sorry for that. So the next event on related to HashiCorp are this one. So first, in the 13th of June, there are Hashi Days. You have in London, Munich, Paris, and online. So you can continue. You can connect online if everything are booked on other cities. Then in August, you have HashiTalk Builds. Last week we had HashiTalk Secure. If you want to see them back. HashiConf in October 10, 12 at San Francisco and online. And then end of this year, HashiTalk deploy December 6 and 7. And for the next session on HashiCorp User Group Luxembourg, it will be disclosed in the coming weeks. It will be managed in beginning of July, I guess, the next sessions. We are doing every two months here. And if you have any ideas or some experience or feedbacks you would like to give to new presentation, feel free to contact me, and we can manage to have this managed in the next sessions. Thank you for joining the session. Thank you for people here in the office. If you can manage to see back the sessions on the HashiCorp User Group Luxembourg YouTube channel, and feel free to connect on discuss.hashicorp.com to ask questions on any projects on HashiCorp. And thank you again, and see you next time for the next sessions.